They told you the backrooms were just an internet myth, some creepy pasta made of yellow walls and buzzing lights. But what if that was the biggest lie of all? What if those endless halls weren't a joke, but the most terrifying ritual traps ever designed, built not in abandoned buildings, but in the hidden corridors of your own mind? Tonight, you'll see the most terrifying liminal traps of the backrooms explained in obsessive detail. And I promise you, once you understand what these spaces really mean, you'll never look at silence, empty rooms, or even your daily routine the same way again. Because here's the paradox: the backrooms feel fake precisely because they are real. They're not glitches in reality. They're blueprints of control, designed to keep you looping, feeding something you can't see. And the worst part, you've already felt them. Every time you've walked down a hallway that seemed to stretch forever, every time you've sensed someone watching when no one was there, every time your life has slipped into endless repetition, you've brushed against them. So if you're ready to uncover forbidden knowledge and to break illusions most never even question, then stay with me. What you'll learn here will shatter the comforting myth and reveal the hidden prison we were never meant to notice. And if this resonates with you, if you feel the hum of those walls already, don't just watch. Join us. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications and step with me beyond the wallpaper. Because the only way out is through. What if the endless yellow halls of the backrooms weren't just a strange online myth, but something far more disturbing? An echo of traps hidden deep within the very fabric of consciousness. Imagine walking into those buzzing, fluorescent corridors, not because you clipped out of reality by accident, but because some unseen force designed a maze to absorb your perception. In this Backrooms Explained in Detail, the horror doesn't come only from the dirty carpets or the eerie lights. It comes from realizing that every wall, every hum, every corner is calibrated to disorient the soul. This is the essence of a liminal trap, a place where reality feels real enough to fool you, yet hollow enough to remind you that you've crossed into a hidden dimension. People often laugh off the backrooms as creepypasta, but think about this. Why does the concept of liminal spaces strike such a universal chord? The reason is simple. Our subconscious already recognizes the pattern. When you enter a hallway that stretches forever, or a room that seems slightly off, you're not just experiencing creepy backrooms horror. You're feeling the resonance of a symbolic architecture built to mirror your fears. Like a dream that knows too much, these places hold esoteric backroom symbolism, doors that never open, ceilings that drip but never collapse, and corridors that whisper secrets you were never meant to hear. The real terror is not what's in front of you, but what's feeding behind the walls. To understand this backrooms analysis, you need to think beyond internet lore and step into the world of dark esotericism. Ancient initiates knew of hidden realities, places where the unprepared would wander endlessly, trapped by their own senses. That's why the backrooms feel less like a glitch and more like a ritual, a backrooms initiation, if you will, designed to strip you of time, identity, and orientation. Even the sound, that constant fluorescent hum, functions as a subtle hypnosis, locking you into loops. This is what makes it more than just a scary story. It is a ritual disguised as randomness, a test hidden in the most mundane aesthetics of office walls and yellow wallpaper. Think of it like an astral trap, a maze built not out of bricks, but out of perception itself. When the CIA Gateway process explored altered states of consciousness, it hinted at something eerily familiar, the idea that frequencies and vibrations could shift awareness into other planes. Now, ask yourself, what if the backrooms are one of those planes? Not random at all, but one of many forbidden knowledge corridors, constructed to recycle human perception into fuel for something else. It's why wanderers report feelings of déjà vu, looping time, and the sense of being watched. The design is deliberate, the experience curated, and if you've ever had a nightmare where you're stuck in an endless hallway, running but never arriving, you already know how it feels. Those dreams are more than dreams. They are previews of backrooms nightmares, echoes of astral projection gone wrong. The brain interprets them as fear, but the soul senses something deeper, a cosmic prison where every exit folds back into itself. That's why people wake up sweating, their hearts pounding, feeling like they've just escaped something. Maybe they did. Maybe their subconscious brushed against the wallpaper of the backrooms and recoiled before being fully absorbed. The terror here isn't just external, It's psychological. Every backrooms entity you imagine lurking in the shadows is less about monsters and more about what your own perception fabricates under pressure. But perception can kill. In an environment designed as a subconscious trap, where even your sense of time is unreliable, your mind begins to fracture. You might see things that aren't there, or worse, fail to see what is. That's why people call it the most terrifying backrooms level explained, because you're not only fighting the environment, you're fighting yourself. And in such places, the mind doesn't always win, yet there's something even more unnerving. If these corridors are real, then myths of ancient labyrinths, mazes built to confuse and contain, suddenly take on new meaning. What if the Minotaur's maze, or the Egyptian duat were just distorted memories of the same backrooms conspiracy? Perhaps these weren't metaphors at all, but ancestral warnings about hidden architects who built the first liminal horrors. And that is where the whisper of these yellow walls leads us, not to random fear, but to forgotten myths of endless corridors preserved across cultures, waiting for us to notice the connection. What seems like an internet legend today may actually be the resurfacing of something humanity has always known. The idea of backrooms explained, endless corridors with no escape, echoes myths that stretch back to the dawn of civilization. Think of the Egyptian duat, the labyrinthine underworld where souls wandered through chambers of trial, or the Minotaur's maze, designed to disorient until the wanderer forgot their own name. Even Dante's Inferno presents circles that spiral deeper into confusion and despair. These were not random stories, but ancestral warnings of liminal spaces where consciousness itself could be imprisoned. The backrooms horror is simply the modern mask of the same ancient ordeal. When you walk through these eerie backrooms, you're not just walking through yellow wallpaper. You are stepping into a tapestry of cultural memory. Every liminal trap in mythology was a symbolic architecture, meant to reveal that the soul is tested in places where form repeats and exits vanish. Ancient priests may have dressed this in ritual language, but the essence is the same. An initiation hidden within a paranormal backrooms mystery, the corridors of the subconscious mirror, the corridors of myth. That's why so many people feel déjà vu when they read about backrooms levels explained, as if they've already been there in a story, or maybe in another life. Consider the Egyptian journey of the dead. The duat was filled with guardians, riddles, and corridors that bent upon themselves. To the uninitiated, it was a subconscious trap, an astral maze designed to disorient. To those who carried forbidden knowledge, secret words, frequency keys, it was a passage to light. The similarity to the backrooms ritual is uncanny. Without preparation, you wander endlessly. With initiation, you might find the hidden door. This duality makes the legend powerful. It is not only a place of horror, but a place of judgment. Who survives the labyrinth is determined not by strength, but by awareness. And then there is the Greek labyrinth, the prison of the Minotaur. Think of it, a creature at the center of endless corridors, waiting for the lost. Isn't that the same as the faceless backrooms entities explained in obsessive detail? Predators placed not randomly, but deliberately, to ensure wanderers never escape. These backrooms monsters are modern symbols of ancient guardians, reflections of archons who maintained the prison of illusion. Even the act of clipping into the backrooms mirrors the fall into mythic underworlds, an accidental step that reveals you were always on the edge of another dimension. Dante, centuries later, described the Inferno in ways eerily aligned with liminal horror, each circle more terrifying than the last, each descent stripping the soul of illusion. This echoes the backrooms philosophy of progression, levels that grow darker, stranger, more hostile as you go deeper. Dante's circles, like backrooms levels, are less physical places and more mirrors of the human condition. They show how fear, guilt, and despair create their own infinite corridors, looping endlessly until one breaks the cycle. What he wrote as poetry now emerges in creepypasta as an esoteric warning. The connection across cultures is undeniable. Whether carved in stone, written in verse, or posted online, these tales of creepy backrooms are telling us the same thing. There are prisons that exist between worlds, not built of matter, but of thought, vibration, and perception. When someone dreams of being lost in an airport, a hotel, or an endless hallway, it isn't random. It is the subconscious brushing against a hidden reality, one that civilizations tried to describe in myth, and we now call backrooms horror. The language changes, but the symbolism remains intact. And here's the most chilling thought. If myths of labyrinths and underworld corridors are memories, then maybe the backrooms are not fiction at all. Maybe they are the modern face of an occult backrooms initiation, the same ordeal our ancestors warned about, wrapped now in wallpaper and buzzing lights instead of marble and fire. The myths didn't die, they adapted. And what we thought of as legends might just be blueprints of forbidden esoteric secrets, maps of traps built to hold wandering souls. Which brings us to an even stranger question. What makes these corridors so inescapable? The answer lies in the very geometry of entrapment. It's one thing to hear about myths of corridors and prisons, but it's another to ask why they trap us so effectively. The answer isn't only symbolic, it's architectural. The backrooms are terrifying because they are built on non-Euclidean geometry, spaces where hallways fold back on themselves and rooms appear in impossible patterns. In this Backrooms explained obsessive detail, the horror lies in how the environment defies the laws our minds rely on. Geometry becomes a weapon, and every liminal trap a recalibration of the senses. That's why these Backrooms levels explained feel like a nightmare. They don't just scare you, they disassemble your very capacity to orient yourself. Think about walking through an office corridor that should logically lead somewhere, but in the Backrooms it loops endlessly, twisting back into the same stained carpet. It's more than a creepy Backrooms mystery. It's a deliberate distortion of perception. This is the kind of subconscious trap that doesn't need monsters to terrify you. The geometry itself becomes the predator. Just as ancient labyrinths forced wanderers to lose direction, the Backrooms use impossible spaces as astral mazes, recycling your fear over and over. Every turn is another reminder that your mind cannot map infinity, and so it begins to break. Esoteric traditions understood this principle. The Kabbalists spoke of the Qliphoth, shells of broken forms, shattered geometries that trapped wandering souls. Doesn't that sound like Backrooms occult symbolism? Each hallway that almost makes sense but doesn't, each staircase that leads nowhere, mirrors the idea of living in a world of fragments. These aren't simply Backrooms horror stories, they are reminders of a cosmic prison designed by hidden architects. Like the Qliphoth, the Backrooms are not stable realities, but collapsed reflections of something higher, meant to ensnare those without the keys of understanding. Even modern science stumbles here. Non-Euclidean geometry allows for realities where parallel lines meet, where inside becomes outside, where infinity fits inside a finite space. Imagine how disorienting that feels for a human consciousness. Now imagine it weaponized into a Backrooms trap. This is not just a metaphor, it's a psychological torture device coded into the architecture itself. Like the endless staircases of Escher's drawings, the Backrooms create liminal horror, not with claws or teeth, but with endless corridors that lie to your perception. It is horror by design, and the design is mathematical. On a personal level, anyone who has wandered a confusing building knows the dread. You take a wrong turn, you retrace your steps, but somehow you're even more lost. That feeling multiplied infinitely is the essence of the most terrifying Backrooms. It's not the carpet mold that kills your spirit. It's the sense that space itself has betrayed you. One could say this is the Backrooms philosophy. Terror doesn't need blood or violence. It needs only repetition, monotony, and the slow realization that the rules of reality no longer apply. The walls themselves are enough to break a soul. The geometry also recycles energy. Every loop, every endless hallway is an energetic circuit, feeding on fear. Just as haunted houses thrive on psychic residue, the Backrooms appear to recycle human panic into fuel. That's why time bends there. Hours feel like days, days feel like years. The paranormal Backrooms nightmare is not only spatial but temporal. Your energy doesn't just dissipate, it is harvested. This is why so many describe the experience as draining, as if the very air were pulling their life force into the walls. Fear becomes currency, and the maze demands payment. And yet, there's an even deeper suggestion. If the architecture itself is the trap, then perhaps the buzzing hum of the lights and the repeating tiles and the loops of space are not accidents. They are locks, mechanisms designed to hold the soul in place. Which raises the next chilling question: what exactly fills those corridors when we're not there? The geometry sets the stage, but the whispers in the air suggest something else is moving in the background, perhaps the residues of those who never escaped. perhaps the echoes of the astral body itself, lingering forever in vibration. The hum of the fluorescent lights is the first thing most people mention when describing the backrooms. But what if that sound isn't electrical at all? What if it's the vibration of countless astral fragments, echoes of lost wanderers trapped in these liminal spaces? Imagine every person who ever slipped into this astral trap, leaving behind a residue of fear and despair. Over time, those fragments accumulate, weaving into the very structure of the backroom's horror. The sound becomes more than background noise. It becomes a frequency prison, a hypnotic drone that erodes sanity 1 second at a time. Think about how silence feels in a normal room. Peaceful, grounding. Now imagine a silence so loud it hums, a static that never stops, like tinnitus of the soul. That's what the backrooms explained in obsessive detail gives us. The constant hum isn't neutral. It's parasitic. It gnaws at focus, distorts time, and forces the wanderer deeper into paranoia. Some claim it's the resonance of dying light bulbs, but the wise recognize it as something older, the voices of those who never escaped. These echoes form the true, creepy backrooms entities, not bodies, but vibrations, haunting every corner like invisible ghosts. Ancient mystics spoke of astral shells, fragments of the soul left behind after traumatic death or failed initiation. In Kabbalistic lore, these shells drift endlessly, whispering nonsense that corrodes the living. Isn't that precisely the nature of backroom symbolism? The whispers in the buzzing lights, the feeling that someone is calling your name when nobody is there. It's the same phenomenon. The backrooms don't need monsters to terrify you. They already contain an ocean of voices, looping endlessly. It's not that you're alone in those infinite corridors, it's that you're surrounded by too many who never left. And the most unsettling part, these astral residues don't behave like normal ghosts. They don't appear and vanish. Instead, they embed themselves into the environment itself. The wallpaper hums, the carpet whispers, the corners stare back. In this paranormal backrooms analysis, the very architecture becomes alive with recycled consciousness. What we call static might be thousands of overlapping cries, distorted until they sound like electricity. This is what makes the backrooms such a liminal horror, the realization that you are not only walking through a maze, but through the psychic remains of those who walked before you. Imagine listening closely to the fluorescent buzz until you think you hear words. At first, it's imagination. But then, a phrase slips through, familiar, urgent, as if it knows your name. This is the trap, the subconscious trap. Your own mind starts filling in the blanks, sinking to the astral static. Once that happens, escape becomes harder. It's like being hypnotized by a broken record that convinces you it's a living voice. This explains why people report losing themselves in the backrooms, forgetting who they are. The sound isn't background, it's assimilation. Even science brushes against this idea. Parapsychologists study residual hauntings, where traumatic events leave imprints that replay in loops. The backrooms feel like the ultimate residual haunting, a cosmic prison where the trauma isn't just one event, but the collective despair of all who enter. Each hum is a replay, each flicker a memory, and just as old tapes degrade over time, the astral residues in the backrooms twist into grotesque forms, no longer human, but still conscious enough to suffer. That hum, it's not random. It's the universe screaming on a frequency we were never meant to hear. And yet, if the backrooms hold the echoes of lost souls, then something must be curating those echoes. Residue doesn't arrange itself into traps, which begs the question, who or what designed a maze built on psychic fragments? The whispers aren't alone. Behind them, hidden in the shadows, something waits, something faceless, something tasked with ensuring that no soul truly escapes. The next step of our descent takes us from echoes into presence, from fragments into guardians, the entities behind the walls. For many, the most unsettling part of the backrooms isn't the endless wallpaper or the droning lights. It's the certainty that something is watching. The corridors feel curated, as though every stain on the carpet and every flicker of light was arranged with purpose. That's because the backrooms are not empty. They are populated. Hidden in the shadows are the guardians of the maze. The backrooms entities explained by terrified wanderers as faceless stalkers, shadow figures, and inhuman predators. They are not random monsters. They are symbols, embodiments of dark esotericism, and Backrooms occult symbolism designed to ensure no one escapes this astral trap. These entities don't always attack. Often, they observe. A figure at the end of the hallway that vanishes when approached. A faceless humanoid peering around a corner only to dissolve into the hum. This behavior reflects something ancient. In Gnostic teachings, the Archons were gatekeepers of the false world, wardens of the soul's prison. The same role is mirrored here. The creepy Backrooms monsters aren't chaotic. They are custodians, ensuring the Backrooms nightmare continues. Each presence, each glance, is part of the ritual, constant reminders that escape is forbidden. Think of them as predators of perception. They don't need claws or fangs to destroy you. They feed on fear, on paranoia, on the energy recycled by the liminal trap. This is why some wanderers describe feeling drained after an encounter, as though the entity had pulled something out of them. The fear itself is the currency. In Backrooms analysis, this turns the wanderer into prey without even realizing it. Your panic becomes nourishment, and your confusion becomes chains. The entities don't just guard, they harvest. Strikingly, these descriptions mirror ancient myths. In the Egyptian duat, souls faced guardians at every gate. In the Greek labyrinth, the Minotaur stood as the living embodiment of the maze's cruelty. Even Dante's Inferno placed monstrous figures as keepers of circles. All of these guardians served one purpose: to prevent escape. The Backrooms entities serve that same function. They are the updated mythological archetypes for our age, faceless shadows instead of bulls or demons, but always reflections of a hidden architecture built to contain us. Some claim these entities are projections of our own subconscious fears, illusions shaped by stress. But if that were true, why do thousands report the same faceless beings, the same stretched humanoid silhouettes, the same terrifying shadows lurking in infinite corridors? Collective imagination rarely produces identical detail. The consistency suggests something else, something intelligent, something intentional. This is where Backrooms conspiracy theories emerge, that the maze is curated not by chance, but by hidden architects who planted guardians to ensure the ritual functions as designed. And here lies the cruel genius. The entities rarely give chase. Instead, they stalk, hover, linger at the edges of vision. This uncertainty keeps the mind in a state of perpetual paranoia, amplifying the energy they feed on. The hunter doesn't need to strike if the prey is already dying of fear. It's a strategy as old as predators themselves, weaponized in an occult Backrooms ritual. Each glance behind you, each breath that quickens, each step that echoes too loudly, it all becomes part of the feeding. You're never sure if you're safe. That's the trap. But what happens when the entities aren't shadows in corridors, but reflections of something more familiar? When the endless rooms turn into offices, cubicles, and bureaucratic hellscapes, the predators take a new form. Not faceless stalkers, but the crushing weight of meaningless labor. The Backrooms don't just contain monsters, they mirror society itself, which leads us to the next revelation, the infinite bureaucracy of souls, where the prison no longer looks like horror, but like daily life, disguised as routine. One of the most chilling realizations about the Backrooms is that their most terrifying level doesn't always resemble a nightmare. It resembles real life. Imagine endless office spaces, cubicles stretching into eternity, filing cabinets humming with meaningless documents. This is the Backrooms explained in obsessive detail, a prison of bureaucracy. The walls are beige, the lights flicker, and the air smells faintly of toner. Here the soul is not hunted by claws, but shackled by monotony. It's a liminal trap disguised as routine, a mirror of daily existence where you shuffle papers that mean nothing, forever. Why does this feel so horrifying? Because deep down, many already live in such a system. The infinite corridors of corporate life, the endless meetings, the meaningless reports, they echo the symbolism of the Backrooms. What makes this a terrifying Backrooms level is that it doesn't exaggerate, it reflects. The occult Backrooms symbolism becomes clear. Enslavement doesn't always come with chains. Sometimes it comes with desks and deadlines. What we call modern life may be the very ritual designed to trap perception and energy in repetitive cycles. The Backrooms only reveal the truth we refuse to face. Consider the image of souls condemned to stamp papers eternally. In Dante's Inferno, each circle was a punishment tailored to the vice of the damned. Here, the punishment is not fire or ice, but futility. The paranormal backrooms analysis shows that infinity disguised as labor is a far crueler prison than any demon's claws. The cubicle maze strips away meaning until the wanderer forgets why they're moving, what they're working for. This is not just horror, it's philosophy. The backrooms conspiracy whispers that we are already caught in such systems, and the office is merely its physical reflection. Think of the way fear works here. Unlike the faceless stalkers of other backrooms entities, the bureaucracy doesn't chase you. It suffocates you with repetition. Every stapler click, every copy machine hum, every fluorescent buzz becomes another nail in the coffin of identity. The subconscious trap deepens as wanderers begin to lose track of days, months, years. In this level, time is consumed by meaningless work. The energy drained here mirrors real-world exhaustion, how daily routines consume vitality until people feel like hollow shells. The horror is recognizing yourself in the wallpaper. This bureaucratic dimension also reveals the role of hidden architects. Just as governments create systems of paperwork to keep citizens subdued, the backroom's infinite offices serve as cosmic prisons to keep souls subdued. It is the same design, scaled beyond imagination, control disguised as organization, enslavement disguised as order. The esoteric backroom symbolism becomes unmistakable. Freedom is denied not with violence, but with endless distractions. A person who spends eternity filing meaningless forms will never look for the exit, and that is exactly how the trap works. Personal experiences reflect this eerily. Anyone who has worked a draining job knows the feeling of watching life slip away through repetitive tasks. Now imagine that sensation eternalized. That's the backroom's nightmare. The horror doesn't need blood or monsters. It only needs your surrender to monotony. Some wanderers describe realizing halfway through that they've been working in those cubicles without knowing why. Their hands shuffle papers that don't exist. Their bodies sit in chairs that mold to them like coffins, and they can't remember when they sat down in the first place. And just when you think this is the deepest horror, that the backroom's enslaved by bureaucracy, you hear the hum again. But this time, it doesn't sound like paperwork. It sounds like a lock. A vibration that resonates with your bones, as though the maze itself is tuned to a frequency. The realization dawns. The cubicles are not just traps of meaninglessness. They are tuned prisons, built with sound, which leads us deeper into speculation of the most dangerous kind. Binaural locks and frequency keys, the hidden mechanism that holds the doors shut. What if the hum of the backrooms wasn't just a background annoyance, but the very key to its prison? Many who step into these liminal spaces describe the sound not as random noise, but as a vibrating lock. Think about it. The fluorescent buzz resonates in your bones, looping endlessly. Could this be a backroom's ritual built on frequency? The CIA gateway process explored how binaural beats could shift consciousness, tuning the brain into altered states. In the backrooms, the hum might be the inverse, a frequency cage, holding the wanderer inside the astral trap. Consider the power of sound. In ancient temples, chants and tones were used to open gates of awareness. Frequencies shape matter, they bend perception. The backrooms seem to weaponize this principle. Instead of opening doors, they seal them. The lights and hum act like binaural locks, programming the subconscious to surrender. It's no coincidence that wanderers often describe feeling drowsy, hypnotized, even paralyzed. This is not just creepy backrooms horror, it's a form of vibrational imprisonment, an occult backroom symbolism hidden in plain noise. The walls don't need bars when the air itself is the cage. If that sounds far-fetched, consider how the military already studied this. The CIA gateway tapes experimented with binaural beats to induce out-of-body states. Now imagine that same principle reversed, not freeing the astral body, but tethering it. Each corridor becomes a frequency-encoded prison, designed to keep awareness looping inside. The backroom's hum becomes the anti-gateway, a lock rather than a key. This explains why some wanderers report hearing the sound grow louder the more they resist, as though the maze itself increases volume to overpower their will. It's not just a sound, it's a warden. On a personal level, Think about music that affects your mood. A calm melody soothes, a discordant tone unsettles. Now imagine an endless tone that never resolves, a chord suspended forever. That's the terrifying backrooms nightmare. Your brain tries to process it, but can't. Over time, the unresolved sound fractures thought. This isn't speculation, it's neuropsychology. When the mind cannot resolve a pattern, it loops endlessly, burning energy. That's why the hum feels so draining. It forces the brain to fight a puzzle with no solution. It's the most efficient subconscious trap ever designed. The esoteric angle makes it even darker. Ancient grimoires often warned of forbidden tones, sounds that could bind spirits. What if the backrooms hum is one of these? A tone encoded into reality itself, used by hidden architects to bind astral wanderers. This is where the backrooms conspiracy becomes terrifying. If the frequencies are locks, then what are the keys? Some suggest shifting personal vibration through breath, chant, or willpower can break the resonance, but most never realize they're trapped by sound. They fight the walls instead of the frequencies, never understanding the prison's design. Imagine sitting in that buzzing corridor, closing your eyes, and trying to match the hum with your breath. Some claim this synchronization opens pathways, as if the backrooms respond to conscious vibration. Could this be the keys hidden within the noise? The idea ties back to the esoteric backrooms initiation. Only those who recognize the hum as a lock can even begin to seek escape. It is not brute force that frees you. It is awareness, resonance, alignment. The sound tests whether the soul can rise above the cage or remain looped forever in infinite corridors. But the cruel irony is that most never get that far. For every wanderer who suspects the hum has meaning, there are hundreds who sink into madness before they connect the dots. And beyond the hum lies something worse, the descent. If the frequencies are locks, then each new backrooms level explained is a deeper frequency prison, darker and more hostile than the last. Every vibration leads downward, stripping identity layer by layer, which is why the next step in our journey takes us into the abyss itself, the descent into deeper levels. The backrooms are never static. They pull you downward, deeper, into layers that feel less like places and more like initiations. Each descent is a stripping process. The buzzing lights dim, the carpet grows moldy, and the air thickens with dread. This is not random escalation, it is ritual. Every backrooms level explained follows the logic of initiation, where the self is dismantled step by step. The further you go, the less you recognize yourself. This is the essence of the liminal horror, losing not only your way, but your identity. At first, the changes seem subtle. The familiar yellow walls darken into shades of brown. The stains spread like living organisms, and the air begins to taste stale. But then, the architecture itself betrays you. Stairs lead downward into voids, rooms collapse into endless pits. The wanderer realizes that the creepy backrooms trap is not just physical, but psychological. The deeper levels attack memory, stripping away anchors to reality. Names, faces, even the concept of time fade. The terror isn't in being chased, it's in forgetting who you were before you entered. This mirrors initiation rites in ancient cultures. Shamans, priests, and mystics often underwent symbolic death, fasting, isolation, trials of fear. In that sense, the backrooms explained act as a modern mythic stage. The descent through levels is the ordeal of ego death, where every layer of comfort is peeled away. But unlike sacred rites, here the stripping feels hostile. It is not for growth, but for consumption. The astral maze becomes a grinder of consciousness, breaking wanderers down until only raw fear remains. It is the most terrifying backrooms initiation, disguised as endless rooms. Those who have dreamed of falling endlessly know this sensation well. The drop that never ends, the ground that never arrives. It's a subconscious preview of backrooms nightmares. Falling deeper into levels feels the same. The corridors mutate into hostile environments, flickering darkness, parasitic molds, and dripping walls that pulse like veins. Wanderers report the sense that the maze itself is alive, feeding on them. This isn't simply backrooms horror. It's parasitic architecture, designed to recycle identity into sustenance. Each descent is not escape, it's digestion. The philosophy behind it is chilling. The deeper levels serve as mirrors of dissolution. In the upper levels, fear is external, stalkers, noises, endless loops. But in the lower levels, fear becomes internal. The wanderer questions their own thoughts, their own memories. They forget what food tastes like, what sunlight feels like. The occult backroom symbolism reveals itself here. To descend is to surrender the self. The corridors don't just trap the body, they dismantle the soul. This is why the descent is the true cosmic prison, harder to escape than any locked door. And yet, some speculate that this stripping has a purpose. Could it be that losing identity is the only way to slip the cage? If ego is what keeps the soul tethered, then the deeper levels force the wanderer to shed it. This reflects the paradox of initiation, death as a gateway to rebirth. But in the dark esotericism of the backrooms, rebirth is not guaranteed. Most dissolve before they reach transformation. Their energy becomes residue, their whispers absorbed into the hum of the walls. The descent tests not survival yokes, but surrender. But the descent does not end with ego. At the bottom of these levels, wanderers often encounter something beyond entities, beyond echoes, something watching. The sense grows undeniable. There are forces outside the maze, custodians who crafted these traps for a reason. And so the descent delivers us not only into dissolution, but into confrontation. The question is no longer what the backrooms are, it is who built them. Which brings us face to face with the architects, the outside watchers, the hidden powers behind the walls of this astral bureaucracy. The deeper one falls into the backrooms, the stronger the sense that the maze is not random at all. The walls don't hum by accident, and the corridors aren't infinite glitches. They are curated, and if they are curated, then someone, or something, is curating them. This is where wanderers begin to sense the presence of the outside watchers, entities older than demons, stranger than gods. They are the custodians of backrooms rituals, the ones who ensure that every astral trap functions exactly as intended. The backrooms explained in obsessive detail reveals them not as myths, but as architects of hidden reality. These watchers are not always seen directly. They appear at the edges of perception, glimpsed in flickering lights or mirrored surfaces. Sometimes, wanderers report eyes opening in the wallpaper, blinking once before vanishing. Others speak of towering silhouettes glimpsed through cracks in the geometry, too large to exist within the rooms. Unlike the faceless stalkers or backrooms monsters, the watchers do not chase. They observe. Their gaze alone is enough to paralyze. This is why they are more terrifying. They embody the liminal horror of being studied like insects in a maze designed by unseen hands. Gnostic traditions spoke of archons, cosmic wardens who fed on human confusion and fear. The watchers mirror this archetype perfectly. They are the hidden architects of the cosmic prison, beings who thrive not on flesh but on perception itself. Every ounce of paranoia, every second of despair becomes nourishment. The backrooms conspiracy suggests they harvest human energy like a crop, carefully cultivated through corridors that disorient and drain. The backrooms, then, are not glitches in reality, but deliberate farms for consciousness, and the watchers are the farmers. Think of how an experimenter designs a maze for lab rats, endless corridors, false exits, food placed strategically. The rats believe they are exploring freely, but every step is anticipated. The same is true for the backrooms levels explained. The wanderer feels lost, but the watchers know exactly where they will end up. Each sigh, each stumble, each desperate scream becomes data, becomes food. This is the essence of the occult backroom symbolism. Human beings as subjects in an experiment not of science, but of dark initiation. The maze is not broken, it is functioning perfectly. Some believe these watchers are not external at all, but projections of our own higher minds. Could it be that the architects are the parts of ourselves we refuse to confront? If so, the backrooms philosophy becomes even darker. We are both prisoner and warden, both wanderer and watcher. The paranormal backrooms analysis then shifts. The horror is not only in what's watching, but in realizing that the gaze comes from within. Perhaps the true terror is that the maze is self-imposed, and the watchers are simply masks we've given to our own hidden will, and yet others insist on their independence. They argue the watchers are external intelligences, predating humanity, crafting traps across dimensions. These are not demons, not angels, but something older, forces that sculpt reality itself into snares. Theories connect them to the forbidden esoteric secrets of ancient myth, gods who demanded labyrinths, architects who hid knowledge, custodians of gates. Whether internal or external, the Watchers remain undeniable. Their presence marks the point at which wanderers realize they are not exploring. They are being tested, measured, consumed. But here's the final revelation, the one more unsettling than any monster or Watcher. What if the backrooms are not outside at all? What if the maze, the entities, the hum, and even the Watchers are reflections of the mind itself? Every fluorescent light, every whisper, every infinite corridor could be the architecture of consciousness, our own fears mirrored back at us. And this thought leads to the most terrifying reflection of all, that the backrooms are not a place we fall into, but a prison we already carry within. What if the most terrifying truth about the backrooms is that they were never out there at all? The endless yellow halls, the buzzing hum, the faceless stalkers. What if these are not external places, but reflections of our inner architecture? The backrooms, explained as an internet myth, becomes something far darker, a psychological mirror. Each liminal trap is a metaphor for cycles of thought we cannot escape, loops of memory and regret. The hidden dimensions of the backrooms may be nothing more or nothing less than the hidden corridors of the human mind itself. Think about recurring dreams. You run, but never arrive. You open doors that lead back where you started. These are not accidents. They are astral mazes, subconscious rehearsals of the same architecture we call the backrooms. The walls hum with static because our own fears hum inside us. The creepy backrooms nightmare is realizing the maze doesn't need to exist physically. It already thrives inside perception. This is why people connect so deeply to the myth. It feels familiar because it is familiar. It's the shape of anxiety, despair, and repetition, disguised as an infinite office hallway. The backrooms philosophy suggests that the real prison is not built of walls, but of illusions. Every time we repeat the same routines, every time we live without awareness, we are walking those infinite corridors. The buzzing lights are the distractions of daily life, the cubicles, the monotony of meaningless labor. The occult backroom symbolism is brutally clear. If you want to see the backrooms, just look around. How many people already live in them, repeating the same motions until they dissolve into whispers? The maze is not a myth. It is our society, our psyche, our reality. This is where the paranormal backrooms analysis becomes a haunting reflection. Escaping the maze is not about smashing walls or fighting entities. It's about recognizing that the corridors exist inside perception. The forbidden knowledge hidden in the myth is the idea that freedom is possible, but only if we break illusions. This is why the backrooms strike harder than other horrors. They remind us that we might already be trapped. The hum is the sound of our own resignation, looping endlessly until we choose to change frequency. In this sense, the backrooms initiation is not punishment but opportunity. It forces the wanderer to confront monotony, fear, and emptiness. It strips identity, challenges sanity, and demands surrender. If we survive the initiation, we glimpse the truth. The maze dissolves when we stop feeding it. The subconscious trap only works as long as we give it power. When awareness grows, the walls fade. But for those who never awaken, the backrooms remain eternal, a cosmic prison built not of bricks but of self-deception. And yet, there's something profoundly unsettling about this revelation. If the backrooms are internal, then the Watchers, the echoes, even the monsters are parts of us. The backrooms conspiracy becomes less about external architects and more about our own psyche conspiring against us. The whispers in the wallpaper are the voices we ignore in waking life. The faceless entities are the fears we suppress. To explore the backrooms is to explore yourself, and that journey is not for the faint of heart. Because what you find may not be what you want to see. So the final reflection lingers like a fluorescent hum in the mind. Escaping the backrooms may not mean finding a door at all. It may mean breaking an illusion, shedding an identity, or silencing a frequency. And once you realize the maze is inside, the question becomes unavoidable. Are you ready to walk those corridors with awareness, or will you remain another echo in the wallpaper? That's the thought that waits, whispering at the threshold, as we step toward the next layer of revelation. So now you've seen the backrooms not as a meme, but as a map of hidden prisons, psychological, spiritual, and even societal. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep walking the same infinite corridors in your own life, repeating the same routines, ignoring the whispers? Or will you finally pause, listen, and search for the exits hidden in plain sight? The choice is always yours. But remember, the maze feeds on those who refuse to wake up. Think about it. How many of your days feel like the backrooms already? Buzzing lights, endless repetition, no real escape. And if that's the case, what small shift could you make today to break the cycle? Maybe it's a change in routine. Maybe it's daring to question reality itself. What do you believe is the greatest trap humanity faces? The maze outside cast or the one inside? Share your thoughts below, because your perspective might be the very key someone else needs. And if this journey shook you, inspired you, or simply made you see the wallpaper differently, don't leave without joining us. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and keep walking with me through the hidden corridors of dark esotericism, forbidden knowledge, and unseen realities. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we uncover the traps you were never meant to notice.